Hello everyone. Today I'll talk about stakeholder management. So this talks about the stakeholders, stakeholder management, and how do you do the grid mapping. So what are stakeholders? Stakeholders are to be anybody from team who's working in the project. Like customer can be a stakeholder, is a major stakeholder. Somebody from finance team who's a part of the project is a stakeholder. Human resource is a stakeholder. Project team can be a stakeholder. Management can be a stakeholder. Government can be a stakeholder. Suppliers can be a stakeholders. Project manager can be a stakeholders. IT infrastructure can be a stakeholder. So anybody who is part of the team and working in the project, these are called stakeholders. So stakeholder management, it says stakeholder is any individual, group, or organization that can be affected by or perceive itself to be affected by the program. Stakeholder management is a critical component to the successful delivery of any project, program, or activities. So who all can be stakeholders? So anyone who touches or has a relation with the project directly or indirectly is called the stakeholders. Okay. Examples, I'll take some of the examples which includes like project manager. Okay, so project manager is a person who's actually completely responsible for driving the project. Project team, so who is a part of the project and working on the project deliverables and goals. Internal process group, so these are again stakeholders and they ensure that the process is getting followed in the project set by the organization. So finance team takes care or involves to understand that what is the budget that has been allocated, how they're getting it, um, consumed in the project, and the overall budget expenditure and the amount left. Human resource, the person working in the project or person. So human resource is a department which provides a resource to the team. Auditors ensures that so whatever team is doing or whatever the process that is set in the project or guidance has been set in the project, the team is following it. IT infrastructure, so that they provide all the IT related infrastructure like computers, network, or any hardware or software that is required to execute the project, networking and security. So that ensures that the access control and the securities is provided to the team so that they can work fluently. Management. So management is a major stakeholders because they approve. You have to approve it and you have to show them the progress on the project. External customer. So external customer is a major stakeholder because they're sponsoring the project and they are involved. They have the powers and they're involved in the project from beginning. Suppliers and suppliers. So the suppliers are stakeholders who supplies the raw material. Raw material could be a hardware or could be a software or could be anything which is needed for the project to be executed. Contractor and subcontractors. So a contractor can be working in the project and can be a stakeholders. Subcontractors also subcontracting the work to the contractor. They're also stakeholders. Communities, government agencies. So government agencies plays a major role. So wherever you follow the rules and norms set by the government, you have to follow that. Ensure that we have all the approvals to execute the project. Stakeholder management plan. So what all are required to create the stakeholder management plan? So you need to identify the stakeholders, and that is very important activity. So as soon as you start the project, so you need to identify who all will be working in the project or will be influencing the project or will be involved in the project. Prioritize the stakeholders. So you have to, if you have 50, 60 stakeholders in your team or maybe 100, so you have to prioritize which stakeholders is important and who will be involved how much and what is expected. Interview your stakeholders. So connect with stakeholders and understand what he needs and what what is his expectation from the project. Create power interest grid. So you have to now you have got the identified the stakeholders, you have prioritized them, you have already discussed with them. Now create the grid actually. Grid says that you have all the stakeholders list, and then you are on a certain criteria, you uh, parameterize them. Set and manage expectation. So you have to set and manage expectation. So you tell them that what is expected from the project and understand what they're expecting from the project. So this stakeholder mapping exercise, so it's a very good exercise, and that has to be done in almost if you are following the stakeholder management plan, you should always follow this. It talks about the power versus interest grid matrix. So interest is further so low, medium, or high. It can be or we've taken it low, medium. You can also take it low, high, low, medium, and high. Certainly for power, so power can be a low or high or low, medium, high, right? And depending on that, you create the metrics. So who has low interest or low power will be coming under the monitor grid, monitor quadrant, or maybe the high interest and low power will be, you have to inform them, keep informed. So that is coming at the keep informed quadrant, or in low interest or high power. You have to keep that stakeholders will be falling under keep satisfied quadrant, and the high interest and the high power. So these are normally customers or the management, right? They should be always managed closely. So they should be getting all the information and update that they should be included in almost every discussion or everything that is happening in the project. So that is a stakeholder mapping exercise. We'll we'll take you through example by doing the exercise. So let's do the exercise. So this is a stakeholder management plan where you have to provide the basic information of the project name, project code, project start date, project end date, project manager name or program manager name, technical lead of the project, last revised date when this document was updated, customer name, and functional head from where to take the approval in the management. So you have few fields which some of the fields which you have to take care. The name of the stakeholder or sponsor very important. Project role. So what will be his role in the project? His title, stakeholder's title, department, which department he belongs to, his phone number, his email ID, specify the additional detail if you know about that stakeholders. You can document it. Degree to which stakeholders is impacted by the project. It could be low, medium, or high. Level of stakeholders influence. So what is the influence of that person in the project? So you have to and the outcomes. So you have to again rate them by low, medium, or high. Then we have budget. So who is the budget authority person? So you have to mark them as yes and no. Level of involvement in the project. So what is the level of involvement in the project? So that is also important. Preferred method of communication. So how you have to connect with that stakeholders. So the different methods of communication. You can use one of them or all of them depending on the stakeholders involvement in the project. Require and required involvement. So when do you feel that this stakeholders will be required in which stage? It could be so the multiple stages like requirement stage or the kickoff stage or the testing stage, delivery stage, status, progress, the multiple stages in the project. So depending on that, you have to identify this stakeholders is involvement is required at a particular place and what is that phase. If that person is required in all the phases, so you have to mention all the phases. So let's take the example of customer. So one example, so customer name you have to give. So he's a sponsor. His role is sponsor because he's sponsoring the project. His title is could be whatever. So whatever title that he has, you have to provide that information. So vice president, engineering, which department he belongs to, his phone number, email ID, and then degree to which stakeholders impacted. So very high because he's involved, and then impacted. So one is influence, impacted, and the level of involvement. So you have to On these scale, you have to uh, select the fields so that you can identify the person belongs to which category, right? Budget authority is one, and then medium involvement. So through level of involvement is medium. Preferred method of communication. So what is the preferred method of communication for that person? And he'll be involved in kickoff and milestone status, right? Similarly, let's take the example of human resource or HR. So there, if you see the project role, he's a human, he's into HR, like hiring or recruitment, right? Title. So put the title, department, and if you see this is very important. So his impact on the project is medium because we'll be needing him depending on the resource requirement in the project. Influence, so low influence. Budget, so there's no budget. He's not approving the budget. He's not the budget authority. Level of involvement low because he just had to provide the resource. Rest, he is not. He doesn't want to know what is happening in the project. Preferred method of communication, so email. So whatever different channels is required with that stakeholder to communicate, so provide all those preferred methods of communication. His involvement, he might be required in the kickoff to know what is the requirement of the resource in the project and that he has to supply. Similarly, you can work for team members, take lead, test lead, or different team members that you have in the project. You have to identify it. It could be a vendor also, vendor or suppliers, supplier, contractor. So similarly, you have to identify all the stakeholders and list them down here. So once you are done, you have to go to the revision history and update that, documenting the stakeholders mapping. So since you're doing it the first time, so you can write documenting the stakeholder mapping, initial draft for documenting the stakeholders mapping, name of the person who has prepared this document and reviewed by, so that this gets reviewed, and then the date. So date is important, and whenever you update the document, this should be updated, right? Cover page talks about the document information. So who has created the document, what has changed in the document in terms of when the document was originally created. So that information goes in this section, which is cover page or amendment history. So anything, any changes or modification happens with the original document, that has to be mentioned here. And anything that is getting updated in the document from the stakeholders management should be coming in this section. And then we have mapping, which is very important. So if you if you know this, then it becomes very easy to map it and create that stakeholder register. So that is all from my side. Thank you so much.